I think that's kind of a good thing, no?
I don't know.
You can always go home and join on Zoom. I don't want to. Okay. Welcome back. Definitely slightly modified with all the face masks. Baruch Hashem that we have the opportunity to be back here together in a base medrash. It already feels different. Seeing not just parts of your faces, it's great to be back. And hopefully this will continue for a long, long stretch. And any modifications in timing and in logistics that we need to employ, we will do so to be safe and to stay within the confines of safety and within halacha, and at the same time to try to keep a high level of learning. This has been probably some of the strangest 3 months in the last 100 years for the Jewish people since the Spanish flu. And I don't know that then we even knew what we know now about all shuls in the world closing down, and the OU putting out guidelines, and the Aguda putting out guidelines, and different doctors and different rabbanim every week doing different things to support the community. The silver linings, we've seen some remarkable innovations and remarkable creativity and remarkable steps forward in ways that will reshape, that have reshaped our world, hopefully, but at the same time that's true, Baruch Hashem, the daf has not stopped yet, which is really a big chizuk for all of us, and I hope for all of us here that we have not missed a day of daf in light of COVID. Thank God, it should continue that way. And let's just truck on. We have less than 30 blot until we finish Maseches Shabbos, and then we'll go straight to Eruvin. And without further ado, let's get started. Yesterday, we focused on a Mishnah that spoke about emptying out a warehouse or a space that you might need, either for orchim, or if not only for orchim, then also for Talmud Torah. And as we highlighted in the Gemara, Hachnasas orchim is either an equivalent to or potentially even greater than the organization of Torah. So arguably, if here we had to set up this space on Shabbos, but it was filled with stuff that was quasi-muktzah, whatever the things are in our Mishnah that we discussed, the arba v'chamish kupos, we would have been allowed to do so for Talmud Torah. That would have been deemed appropriate. So here, what we're doing in the Gemara on the bottom of Kuf Chav Zayin and the Beis, as we lead into tonight's stuff, which is Kuf Chav Ches, here what we're going to be doing is analyzing our Mishnah still further. In our Mishnah, we had highlighted that there were some foods that were allowed to be moved, and there were some foods that were not. So right now, we're about 6 lines from the bottom, Dibur HaMaskil, Meiser Rishon Shenitla Trumaso, that if there was Meiser Rishon from which Truma was taken, that's something that can be moved. So asks the Gemara, thank you very much, Pshita, that's obvious. That food is of course mutter to eat as long as you're the right person to eat it. Lo tzricha sheiktimu b'shibolim v'nakta himenu trumas meiser v'lo natla himenu truma gdola. There is a seder hadvarim. You're first supposed to take truma gdola, and after that you're supposed to take out the meiser. But here you did it too early altogether. You did it while even before it was in Bikri, even if it was before it was piled up, it was still in the field. So under those circumstances, would we then still say that this is considered the Meiser Rishon that you're allowed to move on Shabbos? The answer is yes. If you took out the Meiser Rishon at the very early phase, when it was still out in the field, and the drush on that pasuk is Meiser mina Meiser Martilach, lo Truma Gdola u Trumas Meiser mina Meiser. The things have to be done in the right order. So the Havamin of the Gemara was that maybe we would have thought that this food is not considered edible, not considered therefore movable because it's muktzah, mashmalan, that it is that's permissible to use. If what you're saying is true, let me ask you an application question a little bit different than this. A little further in the process, let's say that you smoothed it all out. It's called miruach hakri. Afilu hikdimu bikri. What if it was a little later in the process, but right after everything had smoothed out? Nami li pater. Maybe we should say that a person should also be exempt from meiser in that case. If you were to say that, then the pasuk would argue with you. Mikol matnosechem tarimu vegomer. That there's a difference between the earlier moment in the field, the shibolin, and here when we are bikri. If you made this error with shibolin, then we would have then said that you are that food would still then be included in food that can be moved from the arba chamish kupos in order for hachnasas orchim or Talmud Torah. But if it was done at this later phase of bikri, so then we would say that that's not then we would not allow that to happen. Then we would say that the food cannot be moved on Shabbos. Suma ra'is, what is the difference that you found between them? Hi idgan, hi lo idgan. In regards to the kri, they were already in piles. And in regards to the shibolin, they were not yet in piles, and that's the distinction between them. That's why the Gemara, the Mishnah, had to go out of its way to say, this is one of the foods that we include in foods that are able to be moved. Let's move on to the next two dots, 2 lines from the bottom of the page of Meiser Sheni. Meiser Sheni Sheniftu, that's what the Mishnah was talking about. Pshita, says the Gemara, that's obvious too. The food's perfectly mutter to eat. L'tzricha, shenasan es hakeren, below nasan es hachomesh. The halacha is that when we are podeh, when we redeem food onto a coin, or in any other finances, food that we're going to bring to Shalim, we are podeh onto a coin, we have to add 20%. We have to add a chomesh. Now, it's not chomesh 20% of 100. It's chomesh of what would be, it's 1 point, it's actually 25% of 100. So the result is that the 25 is a chomesh. So it's really, the count is out of 1.25. So that's really what's happening here. But anyways, the case is where a person was nasan es keren, they swapped out the money for food equally, but they did not add the chomesh. That when one is transferring Meiser Sheni over to coins, if they forget to add the chomesh, so then the halacha is that it's not ma'akev, and they are still then allowed to move that food on Shabbos for the sake of hachnasas orchim or for the sake of Talmud Torah. We pointed out in our Mishnah that there were certain foods that when they were dried were very inedible. Dafka yavesh, says the Gemara, only when it was dried. Halach lo. Which one was turmus? What did the Mishnah say about turmus? So we said in the Mishnah about turmus yavesh, maisa yavesh mipnei shumay chalizim. That was permissible to move. If you had a whole bale of that, it's permissible to move because izim would eat that. So the Gemara here teaches and says that's only true when it's yavesh. Halach lo, but when it's moist, no, you're not allowed to move it. My taima kevan demarir lo achla, because when it's in its moist phase, it's inedible because of how bitter it is. And therefore, the limitation of the Mishnah is very specific. The word yavesh is very specific. And one can move only turmasin, only the beans that are yavesh, but not the ones that are lach, because otherwise they would be marir, they'd be very bitter. Top of daf kuf chav ches aleph, let's continue. Avalo esa tevel, you're not allowed to move tevel. Again, these things all stand out as questions. They're omer darsheni. Tevel is also, you're not allowed, no one's allowed to eat tevel. The only thing you can do with tevel is be masakin tevel, but you can't be masakin tevel on Shabbos. So obviously you shouldn't be allowed to be able to move tevel. Avalo esa tevel pshita. Lo tricha betevel tevel midrabanan. Shezero be'atzit she'eno naku. We're talking about a case where the tevel where it only has a status of tevel midrabanan, where the atzit, the flower pot in which something grew, was eino naku. There's no hole in the bottom of that flower pot to directly connect it to the ground. Havamina, that when we're talking about tevel that's only midrabanan, that should be mutter to use, and maybe the Mishnah's only limitation is midoraisa, that when tevel is tevel doraisa, you're not allowed to move it, but maybe tevel dorabanan is mutter. Kamash malan, that's not the case. That's what the top of Kuf Chav says here, that if you have tevel that is even derabanan, that it is not allowed to be moved for the purposes of hachnasas orchim or Talmud Torah. Lo meiser rishon. What if a person doesn't give meiser rishon? That also should be obvious. Pshita lo tzricha sheiktimu bekri shenotal mimenu meiser lo not lemimenu truma gedola. Another application of this mistimed givings, where the meiser rishon, where it was hikdimu bekri. Remember, we learned on the previous page, the kri is the later phase. Shenotal mimenu meiser velo not lemimenu truma gedola. So there, you might have thought that solved enough of a problem. Mahu de tema, like the havamina we saw on the previous page, Kedamar leira papa le Abaye. That was the havamina that we just saw on the bottom of Kuf Chav Zayin and page that Abaye recommended. Well, maybe Bekri we could solve this problem. And says the Gemara, no, we don't hold that way. Kamash v'lam kedashani le Abaye, that we reject that opinion, like we saw on the bottom of the previous page, that it's too late in the process to make that change. So that's why all of these cases are here. Let's learn another one. Below es meiser sheni. Meiser sheni is also something that could be problematic. We should not be able to eat it. So says the Gemara, pshita, we should not be able to eat it, and if we can't eat it, it's muktzah. If it's muktzah, we can't move it for achnasas orchim or for Talmud Torah. So if this room was filled with meiser sheni shelo niftu, then we should not be able to move it to learn. Lo tzricha the niftu v'lo niftu kehilchasa. No, you were poded the food. However, you did not do so properly. Meiser shepidao al gabe asimon. An asimon is a coin that has no images on it. It's a smooth coin. But the Torah specifically said that when you're poda meiser sheni onto a coin, it has to be a coin that has images on it. The Rachmana Amar b'tzarta kesef biyadecha. It has to be coins that has a shape on them. Davar sheyesh botzura. But an asimon is not that kind of coin. So if you were poda meiser sheni onto a coin, but the wrong kind of coin, hava mina that maybe you did a dia that was worthwhile, kamash malan, that you did not. Not only that, what if you did it differently in another way? Hektish shechilulu al gabe karka. Instead of you being makdish the meiser sheni onto money, you're makdish it for land. I'm dedicating the land to you. So you give the Beis HaMikdash the deed, they can go cash out and take the money that you wanted to give them. So maybe that works. Says the Gemara, that does not work. You should be able to give them the money, but giving them a deed to the land is not the way to do Ma'aser Sheni. So Havamina by both of these. Havamina number one is that if you would have done it on an Asimon, maybe even if you were posed it the wrong way, then maybe it's enough to change it out of the status of food that you cannot move to food that you can move. Or if you gave them a deed to land, Havamina, that's enough for Ma'aser Sheni to be transferred from Muksa to non-Muksa Kamashmalan, that both of them are treated as Muksa. The lowest haluf, we pointed out in our Mishnah, there's a food that's very hard to eat, and therefore it's Muksa. Tanu Rabbana, let's speak about some of these foods. Metaltlanas hachatzab, you're allowed to move chatzab. Rashi points out it's the type of grass that has very long roots. Mipnei shumaychal litzvim, deer eat this food. Yes, achardal, even full seeds of chardal that yesterday we spoke about were not allowed to be moved. Mipnei shumaychal yonim, doves eat full pieces of chardal. So any animal that eats them, it should be fine. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, this was new education for me. Af metaltal and shivrei zechuchis. Even small pieces of glass can be moved. Did you know this, that ostrich eat glass? Who knew? Part of their diet, apparently. So that's why what the Gemara says here, this was considered an animal that only the rich had. Nowadays, where we live, we don't have the African plains here where you see animals running free. But nowadays, we only see ostrich we only see them in zoos, by and large, unless you go on one of those safaris. But otherwise, we don't see them. So Rav Shimon ben Gamliel here is adding that shivrei zechuchis that you had set aside for an ostrich, that is allowed to be moved on Shabbos if it's in the way of achnasas orchim or for Talmud Torah. Amar lo Rav Nasan elamayata. If that's true, then chavile zemuros. If you were to have a bundle of twigs of branches, yatal talu. We should be able to move those too. Why? Because there's one animal that eats them. Mipnei shumaychel apilin. Because elephants eat this food. So if you're going to say that the random ostrich eats glass and therefore I can move glass, well then an elephant eats the twigs, so I should be able to move the twigs. How far does this go? Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, how would he respond? Namios shchiche. In their world, namios, ostrich were much more commonplace. Pilin lo shchiche, but elephants were not as common. Amar Ameimar, behu de isle namios. It's only true if you own an ostrich. That's your domesticated animal in your house. Says the Gemara, absolutely not. Amar Ravashi, if that's true, Amar Ravashi Lameimar, if that's true, then if I own an elephant, then it should also work that I get to feed them twigs. But that's not what the Mishnah said earlier. We saw a distinction earlier, and we saw this yesterday, that by the chavile zemuros, that we had to set it aside. Why do you have to set it aside? If we don't have to set aside glass for an ostrich, and we say it's mutter to move because it's meichel for a namia, so why then do we have to set aside the food for a peel? It should be just the same. It's food, just their food. It says the Gemara, therefore, ela ro'u. No, you don't have to actually own an ostrich. We reject the shita of Ameimar, and really, it just has to be fit for an ostrich. You don't have to own one. Now, these animals, an ostrich in particular, was owned by those who were more wealthy. We'll get to that right now in this Gemara, because this Gemara says as follows. Almost halfway down, Kuf Chav Ches Midal from Rabbi, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, Rav Shimon, Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Akiva, Kulhu Svir Luhu, Kol Yisrael B'nei Malachim Him. Every one of them felt that Yisrael had the status of B'nei Malachim for halachic purposes, not stam. One application is this: Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, Hadei Amram. Why are we allowed to move the glass on Shabbos? Because an ostrich eats it. But an ostrich, nobody owns an ostrich. Only B'nei Malachim own. B'haraya, that the Yidden are B'nei Malachim. We are allowed to move that glass halachically because we're B'nai Malachim. That's a powerful idea, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu deemed us to be B'nai Malachim, and therefore it's like these stories about these Hasidic rabbis. They go to the doctor and they say, stick out your tongue, and they can't bring themselves to do it because they're B'nai Malachim. Okay, so they've embodied this idea very deeply, and that's a powerful idea. I heard the Zidichava Rabbi, you should look at me well, he said once, who eats pizza by picking it up? You take a fork and you take a knife and you cut it like Isaiah mentioned. You eat it like a person who picks up a huge triangle and shoves it in their mouth. And he said it. He said this at Makor many years ago in the old building. And he said, what was his line? He said, one word of tzchok could make all. I'm not trying to make light of how you eat pizza. I'm trying to show you what it means to be a ben melech. It's a beautiful idea. So that's a halachic application that we see right here. And let's see more applications of this. That was Rav Shimon ben Gamliel Hadei Amar, in our case of the ostrich. Rav Shimon, how do we know that he thinks that all Jews are ben melech? It's not. Bnei melachim sachin al gabi makosein shemen vered shekein darkin shal bnei melachim musuf b'chol. Because we saw this earlier in the Masechta. that Bnei Malachim are allowed to use this more expensive chashuv oil called shemen veret. It's a derivative of roses. Why are we allowed to use it? Halacha l'maisa. It's only from Bnei Malachim because we are Bnei Malachim. Halacha l'maisa has a nafkamina in our life. Good. Next, Rosh Shimon Omer, Kol Yisrael Bnei Malachim Hein. That's just a direct quote. That was the shita, and the reason why we had that kula of the shemen veret. Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Akiva, they're both found in this brisa. Titania. If you owed someone $1,000, and you're wearing a beautiful coat that's worth 100 of that 1,000 that you owe, so they take it away from him. So they give him one in his tax bracket, a little bit less expensive. But the Gemara argues, Tana mishum Rabbi Shmuel, the Tana mishum Rabbi Akiva, Kol Yisrael ru'uyin la'osa istila. Nope, we do not take that chashuv coat off of that person because he is a ben melech. Again, this is playing out in the areas of how much collateral can you take from people. You owe me $1,000. You're wearing a $300 coat. Give me the coat. So the halacha is no. He's a ben melech. You're not allowed to take that from him. So these are just some halachic applications, and of course, it's important to make the jump to the hashkafic applications as well, that we live and carry ourselves like bnei melachim, whatever that means, in all the areas in which it means. First of the widest lines, kuf chav ches amud aleph. Let's continue. Chavile kash. If you have bundles of kash bundles of straw, v'chavile, and others as well. We'll see what this is speaking about here. Tana Rabbi and the rabbis taught. You have bundles of straw, bundles of wood, and bundles of reeds. If you set it aside to feed an animal, then you're good. But if not, if you did not set it aside for those purposes, so then you're not allowed to use it on Shabbos. You can't move it. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, when do we say that you can move any of these things? Only when you can carry it with one hand. However, you're not allowed because it's too much. It's tircha on Shabbos. Chavile seya, ezo, v'koranis, 3 words that we really don't know very well what they mean. The Gemara is going to try to explain them. In all 3 of these cases, hichnisan le'etzin, if you brought it in to be trees, to be used for fuel, ein mistapek mehen b'Shabbos. You're not allowed to benefit from that. You can't take from them on Shabbos. L'maychal behema mistapek b'hen b'Shabbos. But if in fact you took it to be a maychal behema, so then mistapek b'hen b'Shabbos, so then one would be allowed to benefit from it on Shabbos. But kotein biyad rochel, you can just snap things off like a little twig, whatever you need. You can snap off what you need, and you can eat it. Uvilvad shelo yiktom bekli. You cannot use a special shearing kli in order to cut that. Umolel v'ochel, you can roll it in your hands to crack off the outer chaff. Ubilvad shelo yimlal bekli. You can't use a special kli that's used to take off the chaff. Bekli harbe. Divrei Rabbi Huda. You can only use your fingertips. However, really what they would do is they put in the palm of their hand and they kind of make a rolling circle. Like if you wanted to make a little ball of dough in your hand, you do that, it would take off all the chaff. That you're not allowed to do according to the Shita, but you're allowed to roll it in your fingertips, and that would be considered appropriate. These, the first 2 Rashi speaks about them. Right in the middle. We'll see what that means. And skip one Rashi. This is just out of order. P-game. It says here Rhoda, and if you look in the Hagos V'Tzionim, he says here it is a tzemach merape, a healing type of growth. Hanikra b'shem tigna. That's based on Rashi and Avodah Zarah. Bal prachim tzehovim. They have yellow flowers. The olav ne'echalan ketavlin, and their leaves are eaten to be like spices. All of these halachos apply there as well in regards to melila and in regards to ketima and in regards to the parameters of whether or not you brought it in for eitzim or whether or not you brought it in for behema. Mayamisa ninya. Ninya is nana. It's mint. It's very similar language. Who knew that it went back that far? Sia. What's sia? Amar Rav Yehuda tzisrei. This is some type of growth. Rashi here says it's shadriya, and the Hagos here in Sifkat on Zion writes min semach bosem. It's a nice smelling thing. Azov is eversa. This is hyssop, like we know from the Torah. Cornisa shema. That doesn't really translate what it is. Oh, wait a second. You said cornis is cornisa. The Amar lahu man the boy cornisa. It's anybody who wants cornisa. V'ishtakach. And what did we find that he was selling? It was chashe. It was something that we knew about, and that was, says Rashi, shadriya, which is the same thing as tzasre, like the thing we just saw a second ago. So we got to figure out Ella. Therefore, we pivot and change what everything means. Ella siya tzasre, the siya tzasre, ezo is everson, cornisa is chashi. We just change around all the definitions to make sure they all click. Itmar, 10 lines from the bottom. Basar Maliach, if you have salted meat on Shabbos, obviously. Mutter L'taltal b'Shabbos, herring. You're allowed to pick up herring on Shabbos. Okay, what about Basar Tafel? What does Tafel mean? Take a look at Rashi. Dibra Maskal Basar Tafel, about 2/3 of the way down. Rashi says, She'enu Maluach, unsalted meat. Uman degaris tafuach hihi. If you see that it's called a dag tafuach, that also means unsalted. Good. So that's what's going on here. In this case, you have a machlokas amoraim. Rav Huna amar mutar l'taltalo. If you have unsalted meat, it's permissible to move to it's not muksa. Rav Chizda amar asar l'taltalo. It is considered muksa. I heard on a shir that maybe these halachos start to change with the prevalence of eating sushi. The people who are now eating all forms of sushi, maybe these dinim are now nafkaminas. Because if you say that unsalted meat is inedible, I don't eat sushi, but I presume that there's some fish and sushi that's unsalted. I would imagine that there's some herring, maybe. I don't know. People eat herring that's unsalted. What? Are we sure when no, not necessarily here. Right. This is right. Let's see what Rashi says there. Basar tafel she'enu maluach, because on the top of the next slide it says basar tafuach shehu ma'achal l'chaya. What is that talking about? Yeah, you could be right. It's talking about regular meat. Still interesting because the person in the shir said the same thing. So I'm curious what Marimukum he was talking about. Maybe he was just talking about salted meat. What were they arguing? There was no machlokas there. But you're right. I think he's talking about regular meat. So let's see their machlokas. Rav Huna amar mutar l'taltalo. Chizda amar asar l'taltalo. So there's a machlokas amoraim. Rav Huna amar mutar l'taltalo. How can he say that? The Rav Huna Talmid de Rav Hava. The Rav Rabbi Yehuda Sfirale Dislei Muksa. How can you say that? How can you say that it's mutter to use if he holds like Rabbi Yehuda, who in general always holds of muksa? It says the Gemara, a wild idea, that muksa can be split into two different worlds. The muksa le'achila muksa, as it relates to food, savar like Rabbi Yehuda. Right, he won't eat it because it's muksa, but he will move it. But muksa le'taltel savar like Rabbi Shimon. Wow, that's a powerful idea to be able to say that the halachos of muksa for the same item are different depending on your approach to that thing. If I'm eating it, aser, Yehuda land, muksa, Islam muksa. But if I'm just moving it, you want me to bring it to the table for you? No problem, that's mutter because I hold like Reb Shimon by tiltal. So that means that there's two camps of tiltal. One as it relates to food, and one as it relates to stam tiltal. And Rav Chizda Amar aser letaltalo, you said it's aser. Hold on one second. Bahar Rav Yitzchak bar Ami ikla lebe Rav Chizda. He went to his house. V'chazahu bar. So there was a duck, some type of shechted animal. And he picked it up and he moved it from the sun into the shade. But hold on one second. Rav Chizda just said it was usher to move it, and now we see he's moving this duck from the sun to the shade. Why is that mutter? Says the Gemara, shiny bar avza the chazila umtza. No, this particular type of animal, this duck, is not a raya because some people eat it raw. That's what umtza. Umtza is raw meat. So because some people will eat it raw, then it is no longer. But Rav Chizda still holds it shita, still holds it in general by all other meat that it's considered muksa. That you're not allowed to move it just by bar avza, and therefore any other animal that would be eaten raw. That if it were to be eaten raw, therefore there's no din of muksa, even according to Rav Chizda. 3 lines from the bottom. Tan Rabbanan dag maliach muter l'taltalo. This is what I was talking about. David, thank you. This right here. This makes more sense. So 3 lines from the bottom. Dag maliach, a salted fish, it's muter to move. Dag tafel, if you have a fish that's unsalted, asr l'taltalo. Basar bein tafel bein maliach, meat, if you have whether or not it is salted or unsalted, muter l'taltalo, seemingly like the lenient opinion that we just saw in the machlokas amoraim above, like Rav Huna. Skipping the parentheses, bones can be used for dog food. Basar tafuach, unsalted meat, or meat that's disgusting, Rashi says here. But Rashi on the previous page says that basar tafuach was the same thing as basar that had no salt on it. So maybe it just means that it's not good meat because it's not salted. Have to figure out the Rashis. Because some animals will eat it. If someone violates, someone leaves out water overnight and it becomes mayim megulim, so then the din is that, of course, we can't drink it, as we pointed out, very dangerous for us to drink it, but a cat can drink it. A cat would be willing to drink mayim megulim. Rashbag omer kol atzman aser lishhosan mipnei asakana. It's aser to even make that cup of water exist because of how dangerous it is. So that's already an interesting halachic parameter. Do we say that mayim megulim is usher only to drink, or is it usher even to create? Like, let's say you keep a cup of water next to your bed, so maybe that's not enough. What? Exactly. Maybe they need a cup. To leave it out, I mean, you're not drinking from it, and that may not be that dogs are susceptible. But according to Rashba, if he's saying that the Isser is not only with the Shasiya, but also with the Asiya, leaving it out. That's what he seems to say here. And the language of Rashi gives like the language of Gzeira. Take a look at Rashi, second line. Rashi says, Shema yishte adam mehem. It's usher to put it out, because someone might, that's like our language in the Gemara of Gzeira. Gzeira, Shema X. So that we have that format here in Rashi, which is that the Rashbag seems to hold that even leaving that empty cup out on your nightstand might be a problem, and it's a good application there as well. Does that still apply to the reasons no longer valid when the snakes are around the houses? Yeah, the Gra writes about this by this sugya. Somebody asked the same exact question. They said, but the Gemara tells us what we're concerned about nichnas eres from a nachash, and we don't have snakes. We live in a domesticated place. If you live in other cities that do have snakes, by the way, the question of course stands, but we don't have them here, thank God. So the Gra, I think this isn't his Sefer Ma'aseh. I think the Gra writes that for every one reason that you see that the Chachamim give, there are 100 others that you don't see. And that's, I don't know what that means in practice, but we don't undo this Gezerah because of that. However, in other aspects of learning, there are times, like for example, some people clap on Shabbos. So that's a Gemara in Beitza. I think it's a Mishnah that says, Ein metapchen ve'ein merakten. If you ever watched Rabbi Friedman, when he would dance on Friday nights, he would never dance. He would just walk, never dance to the rhythm, because that's the Mishnah in Maseches Beitza. So there, the Gemara says, we were concerned about you being an uman. So there, the Baalei Tosfos say, that when batla tama, batla gzeira, that when the tam falls away, then the gzeira should also fall away. So sometimes we apply that, but not here. And why does the Gra say it here and not everywhere else? I don't know. But the Gra does say that by Mayim Megulin, that even though the reason has fallen away, but there still is a dangerous sakhan. 4 lines from the top of Kuf Chav Ches Amud Beis. Let's start a new Mishnah. You are allowed to turn over a basket in front of chicks, so that they can go up and so that they can go down. What if an animal starts to run away? So then, you can kind of guide it. You can kind of guide it, move it a little bit. You can't pick it up, but you can, because the animals are muktzah on Shabbos, but you can move it a little bit. Midadin, eglin usiyach, and larger animals you can be midadin. Rashi here, is it here? Rashi here, I think says it. Maybe Rashi and the Gemara. Midadin here is a stronger language of really hurting the animal, not H-E-R-D, not hurting an animal, but hurting the animal, moving them physically to get them to where they need to go, which would be permissible for larger animals. And then in a sharp turn of events, Isha Medada Espina, let's say that someone's walking in a Rishus Harabim. That's what the Rishonim point out as a shift in the Mishnah here. If this a woman is walking in Rishus Harabim and her son, her semi-walking son, all of a sudden just starts to plop down. Right? We've seen this all happen before. But when you live in a place that doesn't have an eruv, it can be very problematic if your kid just buckles down and starts a whole rebellion. So she can be medada. You have to pick on the language here. We started out with the tarnagol. What was the language that we said? We said dochen, gentle pushing, and medadin is more intensive. By a child, we can be medadin. We can push them a little bit harder. Not DCFS hard. Don't get any ideas here. This is just enough to get the child to go back within the eruv. When is this true? It's like when you're kind of moving them in a way where they do put their feet down when you move them. But if you're push dragging the kid, that doesn't work. So then you just got to park yourselves because it's a Rishus Harabim. And this leads to last word of the Mishnah. This leads to that famous shaila. What happens if you find out that the eruv is down and you're watching parents and their kids and strollers being pushed all over the city? This is a big shaila in the poskin about whether or not you announce it. You tell people, mutiv shushogi and balti mazid, it's better to say nothing. What are you going to do? Sit there all day? It's going to start pouring rain. It's 100 degrees outside and humid. You got a little kid. He's not walking. You're going to tell the mother it's usher to. So that's like some poskim write that it's better to not say anything at that point. Mutiv shushogi and balti mazid. That's usually when you find out on Shabbos. But you find out before Shabbos, so then it's more advisable to share. Let's keep going. If you see that an animal falls into water on Shabbos, what do? Not allowed to kill animals on Shabbos, but you didn't kill this animal. So what do? Are you allowed to save it, to violate muksa? Can you violate the Yisur D'Rabbanan of muksa to save an animal? So the Tanna Kama writes, maybe kar muksasos meniach tachteha b'malsa also. You're allowed to throw things in there to make the depth of the water less so that the animal can hopefully crawl out. And if they do, they do. Hold on one second. You should feed the animal. Don't give it karmuksasos. What do you don't dump things in the well, just give it food. All right, you'll get him after Shabbos, but you shouldn't let the animal die. Parnasa in, you should feed the animal. Karmuksasos lo. So machlokes. It's really not a machlokes. It doesn't make sense because Rabbi Huda Marav is an amora, and this is from the Tanaim. So how does it work out? Lokashya habede efshar beparnasa. It depends. If you're able to feed the animal efshar beparnasa in, then that's the right move. The ilo, and if you're not able to feed the animal, then maybe kar muksasun maniach tachteh. Then you can put kar muksasus in the water to enable the animal to crawl out. Asks the Gemara, wait a minute, we learned many blot ago, was this a very long time ago, Daf Mem Gimel, says the source Hashas. We learned that you're not allowed to be mevatel a kli that's muchan on Shabbos that can be used. If you throw it into the river for the sake of this animal, it's not usable anymore. So you're being mevatel kli mehechano, says the Gemara, and here's where the lumdus comes in halachic terms. Savar, this Tana holds mevatel kli mehechano derabana. In order to be mevatel a kli, that's only a violation of an isur derabana being mevatel a kli on Shabbos. But tsar balechaim deoraisa, v'asi deoraisa, v'dachi derabana. But tsar balechaim is an isur deoraisa, and when you can't feed the animal and you're forced to throw in the kar muksasos, the blankets and the pillows to make the depth of the water less so the animal can crawl out. So then we have to put the two things on a scale. We say being mevatel kli mehechano is one din derabana, and being violating the isur deoraisa tsar balechaim. So that's a big problem. And the asi deoraisa v'dachi derabana, then it's permissible to be mevatel kli mehechano. So then the post can discuss what happens if you have no other option. It's not a question of like food or blankets. It's help the animal or the animal dies. That is machlokas. The post can quote in the Mishnah Brura. Not simple. Not simple. But it is a machlokas in the post if you're allowed to violate isurim in order to save an animal. And one of the tzerufim there is that we don't paskin that tsar balechaim is doraisa. So we paskin that tsar balechaim is derabana. Not to say that it's not important, but just to say that it's derabana. So then this whole equation would have been very different, right? If this equation was vatel kum mehechano on one side and tsar balechaim on the other, so if they're both derabana, so then you have to ask which derabana is more. That's not what we were asking. We were under the assumption that tsar balechaim is doraisa, and under those circumstances, because tsar balechaim is doraisa according to this shita, so therefore, of course, you can be mevatel kli mehechano, no problem at all. But we don't paskin like that. We paskin that tsar balechaim is derabana. Continues the Gemara 1/3 of the way down. Tanagola shabarcha. In the Mishnah, we said dochen. You can do the lighter version of moving an animal in midadin lo, but you're not allowed to like mamish pick up and move the animal. Tanina lahadu tanarabanan. Midadin behema chay ve'of bechatzer. Avalo es hatarnagolas. The tarnagolas is different. Why is the tarnagolas different? Tarnagolas my time alo. Amar Abaye, because mishum demekafia nafsha. When you start to kind of quasi pick up a tarnagol, it picks up its legs. That's like the instinct of the animal. So therefore, it just causes more problems. But other birds don't do that. That's why a half a line before, it said you can be midadin behema v'chaya ve'of. Other birds you can, just not the tarnagol. Because when you start to pick up the body a little bit, it instinctively picks up his legs, and then your mamish carrying. So that's what we're concerned about. Okay, tani chad midadin behema v'chaya ve'of b'chatzer avalo b'rshus harabim. There we have one brisa that says that you can be midadin, the heavier version of moving a behema, a chaya, or an oaf within a chatzer, but you're not allowed in a rishus harabim. And when it comes to a woman moving her child, obviously she can do the heavier version even in rishus harabim, and obviously kol shekain in a chatzer. V'tanya idach, another brisa. In okrin behema, you're not allowed to be oker a behema b'chayv oaf b'chatzer. Aval dochen bahen sheyikansu. You can't pick them up within a chatzer, but you're allowed to push them so that they can enter. Hagufa kasha. The Gemara doesn't like this at all. Amris, you said. Ein okrin, you're not allowed to be oker, which implies aval diduye midadinan, but you can use the heavier version of moving. That's the implication. Okrin seems heavier, more intensive than medida, which is now the middle level, because now we have three. The lightest is dochen, medidin, and okrin. So if the Mishnah says okrin, it implies that diduye midadinan. And then hadar amris dochen in midadin lo. So which one is it? Do we say that medida is allowed or not by these animals? Amar Abaye, no. Seifa asa on the tarnagolas. When we say that midadin lo, that's only by a tarnagolas, like we've said, because that animal is unique in the way in which it behaves, and that when you pick it up, it picks up its legs. Amar Abaye, hayman deshachit tarnagolas. if you're going to be shechting a tarnagoles, so because of its unique stature in that it always picks up its legs, when you pick it up, you should press its legs down into the ground. Inami or neidal le meidal, you should pick it up entirely. Now again, here we're talking about shchita for yantif, right? We're not talking about during the week. So you're in a rishus hayachid and you need to do shchita. So either you need to press the animal down in the ground, or you need to mamish pick it up, because otherwise it's going to kick its legs and it will cause for the following: the dilma manach leila tufrei be'ara, it'll stick its claws into the ground. The akar l'simanim, and it will cause for the akira of the simanim of the kana and the veshet. It'll displace the windpipe in the esophagus and cause for a problematic shchita. Again, these last 10 lines really have focused on the fact that the uniqueness of the tarnagol, in that it often picks up its legs and or will kick its legs in ways that would not be helpful. You're not allowed to deliver an animal on yantif, but you are allowed to assist in the process of the leda. We'll see in the Gemara what that means. Obviously, if a woman is giving birth, obviously you help. You're obviously allowed to do anything you need. You can get a midwife if that's what's necessary. You can do whatever you need. You're allowed to tie off the umbilical cord. Nowadays, we don't really do that. We clip it in today's births, but alachas kama v'kama, that would be allowed, because tying a knot is more chamor than putting on a clip. So here we would say even the kshira back in the days, what they did, that would be permissible. Rabbi Yossi Omer af chotchen, you can even cut the umbilical cord. The chol tzorchei mila osin b'Shabbos. This we'll get into in the next parak, which is parak Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Eliezer the Mila, which is parak Tisha. Sorry, it's the next parak. We're not going to focus on that so much today. But kol tzorchei mila doesn't mean every last blessed thing. It means things that are directly related, specifically related to bris milah, and we'll get into that when we get closer. Keitzad mesadin, we said that you're not allowed to deliver the animal, but you are allowed to help. You're allowed to catch the animal that's being birthed. You're allowed to press on the animal by its uterus in order to enhance the process of the leda. Tanya Kavasi, Rabbi Yehuda, following the first opinion, we have a brayso that supports Rabbi Yehuda. Keitzad mesadin, how can you help the animal? You're allowed to catch the animal. You're allowed to blow into its nostrils to clear out anything that's stuck in its nose. You can be very specific and lead the animal directly to nursing so that it can begin to nurse right when it's born. Amar Rashbag, Rachman hayinu al behema tahora b'yom tov. We used to have a lot of rachamim on this newborn animal on Yom Tov. How? We wouldn't have thought this intuitively. Says the Gemara, Heichi Avi. How would they show rachamim? Amar Rabbi, maybe bul shel melach. They would take a whole unit of salt, umaniach labesocha rechem, and they would place it inside the rechem, inside the uterus of the animal that just gave birth. And there's always bleeding in an open wound. Salt on an open wound hurts, but so that the mother will remember, and there will be more ahava. Mizalfen me shilya al gabe avlad, and we also take the shilya, the placenta, and we apply some of it onto the blood, onto the baby, that the smell, the olfactory memory is very powerful, and it will increase the love. The dafka tahora, only an animal is tarav al tmealo, but not an animal that is tamei, because my taima tmealo merach kavlada. Tamei animals don't usually distance themselves from their vladim, but the merach kavlada. But if in fact they do create a distance, lo mekarva, they will not then come close to them again. Let's stop here. We'll pick up Yom Hashem tomorrow night, same time, same place, with that Kuf Chav test. Welcome back.